heard of bulimia, maybe it's something that you wonder whether you're struggling with it too. In this video, I share my very raw and unfiltered journey with bulimia, and then the 5 things that I have learned since recovery. I really hope that you find this helpful, especially if you are in that journey of recovery as well. I'm Lara, the food freedom psychologist, and I can help you create a healthy and happy relationship with food without guilt or stress eating. If you're enjoying my videos and you get value from them, then be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and join the tribe. And side note here, if you're feeling overwhelmed and out of control around food, then join my Food Freedom Masterclass. It can really help you gain back that sense of confidence around food. So before we dive in, I just want to give you a little trigger warning here. I am going to be talking about my own personal experience with eating disorders. So if you don't feel like you can deal with that today, then please watch another of my videos instead. So what is bulimia then? Bulimia is basically an eating disorder that involves periods where you eat a lot of food in a short period of time, also known as binge, and then you purge, and that is getting rid of the food. That could be either through making yourself sick, through laxatives, or through over-exercising. So how did mine start then? Well, I think it started innocently enough. I was about 16 and I decided to go on a diet, as I'm sure many teenagers do. I had had some comments about my body and I felt like the way to deal with this was to change my appearance. So I tried magazine diets, I tried Atkins, I followed the diets that you used to get in magazines. They were often very low calorie. I ended up getting stuck in a bit of a cycle where I would diet for a bit and have that initial feeling of euphoria where I lost a bit of weight, got some positive feedback, and then the cravings and the binges would start and I would have a little fall off the wagon, and then I would start my diet all over again. And it got worse over time, so that the binges and cravings felt a lot more out of control. So by my late teenage years, I had actually started experimenting with purging because I was dieting and then binging, and I didn't really want to keep the food inside, so I had experimented with trying to get rid of it. And by the time I was 21, I'd moved to London, I'd started a new job, started a new life. And it wasn't really until this stage that I realised the behaviour that I was engaging in was actually an eating disorder. And that is despite doing psychology at university. It was actually only a few years later that I went and sought help. I decided that I didn't want to continue being bulimic. I went and saw an eating disorder therapist, a nutrition counsellor. I had to relearn how to eat. I was so used to either feeling really hungry or extremely full. I didn't really know what it was like to eat normally. Thankfully, I got some help. I was on the road to recovery, and that took a good few months, possibly even a few years, to really get back into a mindset where I needed to feed myself enough to avoid the over hunger and then the craving and binging that happened afterwards. But I just wanted to share with you the 5 things that I have learned since recovering from bulimia. So the first thing is that it was actually the food restriction that created the binges. Now when I look back on it, I was dieting so much, I was so hungry, and that is what led to the binges. And then eventually I learned how to purge, but that was the issue, the food restriction in the first place. In fact, now I know that you're 12 times more likely to binge if you are restricting. And that's exactly what was fueling my eating disorder, was restricting, which then led to binging. Number 2 is that there is a very fine line between dieting and eating disorders. In fact, the National Eating Disorders Association says that dieting is a precursor to eating disorders. A lot of the restrictive eating plans actually recommend things that are disordered. For example, 12 calorie a day diets. That's very disordered because it's about the same calorie needs as a toddler. Something like intermittent fasting may work for some, but for those of you with any history of eating disorders, intermittent fasting is essentially what I was doing as someone who was trying to restrict. I was skipping breakfast. I was skipping eating after a certain point. I was restricting the amount of time that I could actually eat in a day, and that's what led to my eating disorder. Number 3 is that the diet industry makes you feel utter crap, and that's how it makes it money. This is something that fills me with rage, actually, is that the diet industry makes an enormous amount of money by perpetuating this idea that we aren't good enough, that your body's not good enough and therefore you need to go on a diet. Diets don't work. Often they create a worse situation, like an eating disorder, and we get trapped in this cycle, a bit like I was, and all the while feeling terrible about ourselves. That's how they make their money. Number 4, often we're comparing ourselves to something that isn't real. So when I was starting on my diet and going through that period of my life, I kept on comparing myself to women in magazines. And there I am comparing myself to someone who has flawless skin, absolutely no cellulite. It's just not real life. And so we're not even comparing ourselves to something that's real. And the 5th thing is that we need more coping mechanisms than just food. I realise now, looking back, that period of time was quite stressful for me. I found the end of school, university, and then starting a new job actually quite stressful. I didn't have any other coping mechanisms apart from food. Food became my coping mechanism. The way I coped was to eat a huge amount of food and then purge. That felt like a big relief every time I did it, and somehow it made me feel better. That was in the mindset that I was then. If only I had had different coping mechanisms, if only I had thought about going for a walk, or if I'd known about meditation or yoga stretches, something else to cope with ups and downs in life. We all have ups and downs in life. That is just what life is. But being able to use other coping mechanisms, not just food, can be so beneficial in the long run. Now, honestly, when I talk about my experience with bulimia, I really do feel like I'm talking about someone else's life. But it was very real and very painful in the moment. I am so grateful personally that I found food freedom. And I really hope that some of my hindsight can be your foresight so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. As always, I've added some links and resources below for you to have a look at. 2 books that I really recommend. So one is Body Positive Power. I absolutely love this book. It's a beautiful book about someone who has recovered from an eating disorder. So if that's the kind of thing you feel like you need, then I highly recommend that book. The other one is a book called Anti-Diet, which really shines a light on how we get very easily trapped into this diet cycle. So check out these videos next for more food freedom, health and mindset tips. And if you like my videos, then please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Bye for now.